rolling equity leasing.
I am
REL.
At REL, they're not just a leasing company.
We like to work with REL because
They seem to really care about us.
I am REL.
I am REL.
working with REL, it's a national company with a small town feel. REL.
REL.
I am REL.
I am REL.
I am REL.
We feel like we're working with friends. It's like you're having a beer with your buddy.
We are REL.
Hi, everybody. John Haldi here, and I'm back with Tim Steiner of REL Solutions. Tim, welcome.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Tim, with your permission, I'd love to continue our Truck Love series by talking about telematics.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Now, I only know a little bit about this space, and I know that it starts with the ELD system that's in every truck and it's mandated by FedEx, right?
Yep.
ELDs tracking the driver hours, tracking location, tracking miles by state, some basic things there. Everybody's got one. I don't know that we need to spend time on that, but I'm fascinated because REL has chosen to add non-mandated telematics equipment to every truck that it leases. And I think when you manage trucks at REL Solutions that are not your leased trucks, you insist that they put this telematics stuff into it for the trucks that you're going to manage for folks, right?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about not necessarily the brand that you recommend, or you can if you want, but what data it is that you're gathering and why it's so important?
Sure. I'll stay agnostic on the brand for now, but telematics as a whole is something that you absolutely should be putting into your trucks, in my opinion. Not only do you get a very accurate GPS reading that you can, look at separately, you can start to pull code data, you can start to see driver behavior, acceleration, stop points, different things that are tough to see outside of, black and white data. There's total mileage points. You can look into fuel, percentage of fuel that you used, potential on behaviors that you can improve, and you can see all the different code data. There's different layers to the code data. You can see exactly what's mimicked on the dash, or there's systems that connect directly to the CAN bus that will feed you every single sensor that fires, so you can get out ahead of repairs before they actually even appear on the dash. There's a lot that goes into this.
I heard you mention once diagnostic codes. Is that what you're talking about there?
Absolutely. I'm talking about the fault codes that are thrown by the system. And there's a few different ones. When I talk about this, it generally kind of leads to, hey, only my engine or my after treatment or a general repair. But there's other ones. There's, safety systems. You can see whether or not your driver has their seatbelt on. You can see whether or not they're taking off with their air tanks too low, whether or not their active driver assist programs and their features are functioning currently. If you do connect to one that reads the control modules, you can even tell whether or not a trailer light is.
So it's a device that goes in the truck, taps into the brains of the truck, right?
Yep.
And is sending cellular data back to some central place, and then you can sit at your desk looking at all your trucks when you want to and see all this historical info?
Absolutely.
Ballpark. I own 10 trucks. I don't have any of this stuff. I want to do this myself. What does it cost per truck up front for the equipment, and what's the monthly spend per truck for something like that?
So there's different programs that you can get into. I would say some of the major players, Geotab, Zonar, Samsara, there's a few that are big players. And depending on the size of your fleet is really going to dictate your payment, right? Much like tires, volume is what speaks to everything. So the more volume you have, the less cost per vehicle. But that's generally the more business you're doing with them. So it's going to be very dependent. And then your capability on install is also going to factor into the cost.
So is it hundreds of dollars per vehicle for the equipment or thousands of dollars? Can we leave it in this range?
A couple hundred.
Couple $100. And then there's some sort of monthly fee because there's a data this and you got to subscribe. Hundreds.
$10-ish a week. It's really not much.
So maybe $50 to $75 a month kind of thing.
Yep.
And do some of the manufacturers offer this?
Absolutely.
Almost
all of them do. And that's how deep you're diving into your dealership. If you're buying out of the same place, generally people will start to think you in that regard, but there's some work that has to go in on the dealership and to create profiles in order to get you in on these different things. Each one of the OEMs has their own platforms. You know, the Freightliner has Detroit Connect. There's Volvo Assist, Volvo Impact, there's, you know, International i360. There's a bunch of different programs that each one of these have, but that generally has become a space filled due to the third-party telematics that have been giving this data out, right? So now the OEMs are kind of catching up with all this stuff.
But if you have 10 trucks and you're going the OEM route, 4 of them are from Volvo and 6 of them are from Mack or International. Now you're dealing with 2 disparate systems to watch the different parts of your fleet. Whereas if you standardize with third party, you have one system to see the whole thing, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And like I said, depending on the way that you look at it, if you get one that connects directly to the CAN bus, there's a lot of different benefits to that. You can start to see air NOx sensors or speed sensors, you know, different pieces. And if you really are trying to manage your fleet, some of these can even tell you when you're cooling slow. You can get very granular on this.
For someone who has these devices with all of that kind of sensor information, how big of an impact does it have in terms of saying, let's turn this into a PM issue, not a repair issue? Does it move the needle enough to care?
It does. So if you're brand new to this, what it's going to do is you're going to get flooded with information. It's going to be way too much at first, and then you'll kind of sift through and you'll find categories of specific improvement that you can start to focus on, right? So you can go in, you can say, hey, my driver is doing regens when it actually pops up the first time. You know, we can go ahead and we can have a regen on the side of the road. We can have it in a parking lot, or we can see if they're running active enough to do an active regen while it's going down the road. These all factor in, because if this starts to get ignored and you start to see that code that flare has been carrying through, you might have a roadside downed event for an after treatment that you can focus on and see that it was preventable. You can start to see different codes that come through for rising, you know, fuel rail pressure, so you can make sure that you get your fuel filters changed and you don't go down on the side of the road. There's a lot of different play that goes into this stuff. And like I had mentioned earlier, the NOx sensors, the speed sensors, it's way better to just get those changed out rather than have a failure and possibly get a CSA violation, you know, when the DOT likes to pull you over.
Or pay for some ridiculous tow bill and have to get a rescue from FedEx when you're 1,000 miles from home.
Absolutely.
Okay. In terms of fuel economy, you showed me something, and I can't remember the name of it, and maybe you don't want to share it, but I was blown away by your ability to pull up a single truck and say, over the last week, you had 2 drivers in the truck, and this driver achieved this much fuel economy. And the system was smart enough to say the truck should have gotten 7.4. It got 7.01. 0.2 of that was because of driver behavior, and 0.19 of that was because of poor maintenance or something changeable in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. That unit, that what we're talking about there is Z Fuel. I'll mention that because it's a very unique, specific product that, you know, we managed to engage with that we find a lot of value in. And what it does is it takes essentially what the unit has done. It measures the fuel at every half liter, and then it gives, there's equations on multiple different portions of this, but it starts to tell you what the unit could have achieved in total, right? Its efficiency, and what are the categories that are adjustable by your driver and how they play out. And then it gives you a ranking against a theoretical perfect driver, and then a scorecard of a percentage, right? Where you're losing out on fuel, different things like that. Are you going too fast, right? Are you out of the sweet zone? Are you not engaged with your adaptive cruise? There's a lot of different factors that go into that, but it's a proprietary program, so it's a very unique one.
But what blew my mind was it's looking at temperature, grade, speed, elevation, all of that stuff, and it's doing it all automatically.
Yep, absolutely. It's a fantastic tool. And these are all things that you really want to look at, because the old way of analyzing fuel was so basic. This guy's getting 6.7, this guy's getting 7.2, this guy's doing better. The guy who's getting 6.7 might have a maximum efficiency of, you know, 7, right? And this guy who's getting 7.2 might have a maximum efficiency of 8.4, and he's just downplaying it. you're never going to get the same fuel mileage. My favorite term is hauling rocks through the mountains versus pillows through Arizona, right? Those are two different loads, and you need to look at the efficiency of the unit.
Yeah, separate topic, but I so want to integrate with what you guys have because the data is so rich and so good, and there's real dollars out there. Every 1/10 of a mile in MPG, the way FedEx reimburses, is real money annually.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing is it allows you to look at idle, right? Whether or not it's even needed. It gives you, there's two different factors when you're looking at this. How well is the unit being driven? What are the behaviors when it's being driven? But how is the unit being utilized as a whole, right? This is more like these trucks a lot of times get compared to cars. I'm not a fan of that analogy. They're much more equivalent, in my opinion, to like bottling machines. They're industrial pieces of equipment. And you got to look at the usage as a total and not in one specific category. And idle is a major factor within your fuel mileage.
And they give you detailed reports on total idle time and whether it was necessary or not necessary, right?
Absolutely. And you can even plug in your average cost of diesel so it can give you, a spit out in dollars that you're losing.
I'm fascinated too by the notion of giving drivers bonuses based on how close they come to ideal performance on the use of the equipment.
Yeah.
And without data, you can never do that. But
right.
With this, you could.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to really dig into what the factors were prior. You could do, route, you could do weight. There's a few other things that you can kind of do an advanced calculation on, but not like this. This is data directly from the truck compared to what it could have done, under ideal conditions. And you just can't do that with paper.
So if I'm a TSP out there and I've got a dozen trucks and I'm thinking about retrofitting, I could talk to my OEMs to see if they would offer something that gives me what I want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not I could get that cheap or free. And I guess it's complicated because you got to find out exactly what data you're going to get and what you're going to use.
Absolutely.
You could go to the manufacturers of third-party systems. And I'm guessing there are resellers who do installation and sales for multiple vendors who could give you some insight to help figure it out.
Absolutely. And if you're going to go down this path, I would strongly recommend that you shop these around because each one has different benefit. And based on your experience level is what you want to align yourself with. For example, the Zonar device is very good. It's very advanced for what we use, right? We like to look at everything agnostically. We like the Z Fuel, but there's GeoTab. That's a very good product as well. And they have an open marketplace that has a bunch of different factors in there, downloadable apps that speak to different portions of your business that you can integrate directly with your data all in one dashboard. So there's a lot of different options to this. And depending on your experience level, you want to match the right device for you.
I'm afraid to ask you to offer this, but if people have questions and want to learn more about how to retrofit their equipment or how to plan for the future, can they reach out to you and have one-on-ones? Because I know you would never plug certain vendors that you prefer or don't like on this, but could they call you to discuss pros and cons
Yeah, I did a lot of research before I chose one for REL. So if there's somebody who wants to benefit from that knowledge and have some comparative questions, kind of explain some of the things that they're looking to get, be more than happy to talk to them about different options and, maybe what we can do to help them manage that.
And as a reminder for folks who don't know Tim, REL Solutions handles all the maintenance for their lease trucks, right?
Yes, sir.
As well as non-lease trucks that people bring to them saying, will you do all this for me? And I think you're in the hundreds and hundreds of trucks at this point, maybe thousands.
We're just short of 1,000. We're in the high 800s now.
So he's not dabbling in this. This is his day to day. So you are talking to an absolute Jedi master when it comes to this stuff.
I'm never a fan of the word expert, but I do have a substantial amount of experience in this, and it's just knowledge. I'd be happy to share this with anybody else. How you can administer that becomes the challenge, right? Understanding it is one thing, putting it into practice is what really, is the tough part of this whole deal.
But it's worth it. The dollars.
Oh, absolutely. It's real dollars, real cents, right? And when you extrapolate the amount of high-low that is involved in this can literally mean the success of a business or the failure, closing the doors or giving out bonuses.
Yeah, in an environment where every TSP is facing margin pressure from all directions, if to leave this money on the table is criminal.
No, I completely agree. It's just there, you're spending it either way. Why not get the maximum benefit out of it and, get some sort of return and an understanding on where your dollars are going.
If you've got questions, Tim and I would love to get them so we can create more content. We don't know what you don't know, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. Believe me, I got a million of them. So please reach out to either of us and say, hey, I'd love to see this question answered here. If we can't do it on the air, we'll try to get directly back to you via email.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to hear from the people and to answer specific questions. We give out a lot of generalities, a lot of pathways, and if there's different clarity points that we can point out to help you put this into practice, those are very good questions for us.
Tim, as always, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, John. It's always a pleasure, buddy.